It probably isn't a surprise to you that most homeowners in OC who are not primary residents rent out their property, whether that's for a week, a month, the whole season. Everybody seems to dip their toe in. So it is absolutely critical that you understand how rental income works, how to properly analyze rental potential. And you need to be confident, right, in how all of that is going to play out. That's a huge part in how much home you can really afford safely, with taking on as little risk as possible. So before we dive right in, let's go over a couple key terms that I'm going to be talking through that are important, because the information that you'll see out there in listings might sound great, but we need to really understand what those numbers mean. So gross versus net rental income. Most times when you see a rental income number in a listing description, that's going to be gross. Now, what does gross mean? Gross is without any expenses taken out. It's just what comes in, dollars in, right? So net income is what's left after expenses. And expenses can be big when it comes to rental income, because you have your commission, you have cleaning expenses, as many as you want to throw into that category. So how much you bring in is a very different number from how much you have left after your expenses are covered. So that's gross versus net. A term you may have never heard before, PITI, stands for principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. That's really a mortgage term that goes into calculating how much your true monthly payment is. But as you'll see in the spreadsheet here in a second, I do calculate that out, because that as a separate number from your expenses is important to understand, and we'll go through why. And then last but not least, an HO6 policy. So when you get into a duplex situation or a condo situation, the two main insurances that get covered as a part of a HOA fee, or if you're in a duplex, you just split the bill with the other owner, would be flood and general liability. But neither of those cover the contents of your unit. So an HO6 policy is insurance that protects you, your stuff, and your unit itself. So we usually talk about it saying from the drywall in is what an HO6 policy covers. So all that out of the way, let me show you a spreadsheet that I use to really get a good feel for how a property is going to check out. So move myself out of the way here. So doing the math isn't fun, right? If you're not a math person, running the numbers can be tough. If you're not an Excel person, it gets even harder to really be able to systematically know what you're looking at. So the spreadsheet that I use is very, very helpful for doing that. And we'll talk through it bit by bit. And I'm not the only one that can do this, right? I would encourage you guys to get comfortable with at least wrapping your heads around this stuff. So if you see a 3-bed, 2-bath that says $50K in rental income, obviously that's not $50K in your pocket, but that's still pretty darn good. And at the end of this spreadsheet, you'll be able to see what your cash flow is likely to be. There are some estimates and assumptions in here, but we'll cover it. So these 3 properties are out there on the market now. And I wanted to use live ones so you can really see how these price differences may not be as stark, depending on what you're pre-approved for, how much you can actually afford. Your comfort level may be higher with a higher price point than you thought based on income. So assumptions out of the way, we've got mortgage rate at 3%, 20% down. Change either of those and the math changes automatically and rolls all through. But general details. So we're looking at a 3-2 at 633 10th Street, which is the first floor, a 4 2.5, which is a third floor, top floor of that triplex, and then 435 Ocean, another second floor, 3-bed, 1.5 bath. So our income is usually pretty straightforward to get. Not all listings, and this bugs the crap out of me, not all listings will actually say what the gross income is. And that to me is a little bit ridiculous, because don't you think buyers would want to know that it's not just great rental income? What does great rental income even mean? So not all listings will give you this information. Sometimes I have to go direct to listing agents to get it from them, or they have to get it from their sellers. But either way, you need to get a strong number and understand, more importantly, how that's broken out. Did they fully rent every week starting from April through September, which is a little bit abnormal? Or is this a pretty standard June, July, August with a week or two kept for the owner? Because you'll be able to, again, see based on the rates and what peak rates or off peak rates they're charging, these numbers might be lower than you would have based on how you would use the property, or they might be higher because you want to keep the whole month of July to yourself. So you need to have all of these details to make a sound decision and assessment on which one of these properties or which of them may be a good fit. I usually only look at summer income. Some owners decide to put in a winter tenant just to maximize the property, not have to winterize it. Winter tenants can cover the utilities and really just help with the expenses if you're not going to use the property at all in the off season. Now, that does lead to additional wear and tear. It's more landlord work. A lot of the rental agencies in town don't handle winter rentals. So you might be on the hook for doing that yourself, which comes with its own challenges if you've never been a landlord before. So I usually leave that blank. PITI. So this is a factor first and foremost of the mortgage, which is based off the asking price. So this whole section in gray here is mortgage calculations. We are not going to dive into that, but what we need to know is what the mortgage payment, your principal and interest are going to be. From there, we get our taxes, homeowners, flood, and HO6 policies. And this stuff isn't always readily available. Sometimes, again, we have to go to the listing agent to get that from their seller, so we can make an accurate assessment of what are our monthly costs really going to be. And again, this doesn't include utilities, cleaning, any of that other stuff, but this is a big bulk of your non-negotiable expenses, right? Even if you're going to be using a property and not renting it, you want to understand what you're on the hook for monthly and budget and plan accordingly. So then we get into the not so fun stuff. And you may notice here, right? So there are some different colors, and I should have gone over that. Confirmed data I put in green so that I know and my clients can know these aren't just estimates, right? These are past historical numbers that we can pretty much bank on, plus or minus a little bit, depending on the use of property. And then yellow is going to be estimated data, and that's based off of properties that I've analyzed in the past. There's more variance here, depending on a lot of things. These can be dependent on elevation for flood policy. There's a lot of factors that go into this stuff. So estimates are helpful. Confirmed data is even better. So now the other expenses section, we cover our utilities, we cover our property management fees, which you may or may not know can vary, usually from 12 to 15% if you're using an agency here in town. And that can be very substantial. 12% is usually if you stick with, let's say, Burger and go with an exclusive listing. If you want to play the field and have everybody out there trying to get your season filled, they usually charge 15%. There's some play in there, but that's usually where you land. And then cleaning fees. Again, this is an estimate. There's no way to know what any particular company is going to charge, but ballpark, I usually feel pretty good about estimating these based on how many weeks are rented, size of the property, and general price for that. So you need income, you need mortgage, and you need estimates, or even better, confirmed expenses. Now, once you have all that, you end up with your net income. And again, if you're an investor, you may have your own way of slicing and dicing these. Some only care about PITI, some care about everything. You want to have positive cash flow, and that accounts for every expense under the sun. That's extremely hard to do. But as you can see here, it's not impossible, right? All is going to depend on mortgage rate, percent down, and how well rented it is. So these three properties, two of them are roughly, I'll say, neutral cash. I'm not going to count 2K plus or a couple $100 positive as a positive cash flow, because again, there's some variance in these numbers, how they actually will play out. And then this one is, I would say, fairly standard for what you would expect to find in a rental property. The odds of you getting cash flow positive in the first year, tough, but the longer you own it, obviously you're paying down your mortgage. You may have the opportunity to refinance, which would change things. And more importantly, the rental rates changed. If you've been looking to rent or if you've seen anything, prices across the board have gone up. And that's not just in homes. The rental market tends to follow the home prices. So those have been creeping up. There are property owners that are going to be, several $100s more per week next year compared to this year. So this, I'll say, negative can get wiped out in a hurry that way. So that in a nutshell is how to analyze rental income and rental properties. So don't be either blown away or dissuaded based on a number you see in a listing description, because it's likely not going to include any of your expenses, or it could, and the listing agent didn't lay that out for you. So you really need to work with somebody to get to the bottom of what information is real, run the math, and then make an informed decision from there. So I hope you found this helpful. If you did, make sure you hit the like button below, and make sure you also hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you see my next video this coming Tuesday and each and every Tuesday thereafter. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. Otherwise, see you on the next video.